The actor, Daniel Cassidy, transforms into the Blue Devil and eliminates all the mercenaries, fulfilling his mission to protect Abby Arcane. Swamp Thing then faces the harsh truth that he is just a mutated plant entity, unable to become a real human, leading to his emotional breakdown. Abby continually consoles him, reminding Swamp Thing of the scientist's consciousness within him that has helped the town through an epidemic and saved her life in critical moments, urging him to hold on to faith despite losing his sense of self. Despite not being able to become human, Swamp Thing realizes he can still start anew. However, just when things seem calm, a new threat arises from a military force seemingly out for revenge. Swamp Thing prepares for a fierce counterattack, determined not to let evil prevail again, and drags the bodies into the water for concealment. The next day, Abby returns to the town's cafe and shares everything that has happened with her friends, admitting her brave front in front of Swamp Thing, despite being deeply saddened inside. They both agree to uncover the mastermind behind all these events. Abby then heads to the psychiatric hospital to gather information from Maria Sunderland. On another front, Caroline Woodrue suffers due to a medication overdose, restrained in a chair by her husband, who appears obsessed with his research. He excitedly shows the organ samples containing miraculous cells, convinced that consuming these organs would grant one regenerative abilities and repair the damaged brain. Meanwhile, the wealthy investor hires a private force and acquires a massive arsenal, determined to completely annihilate Swamp Thing, disregarding the potential damage to experimental samples and collaborative projects. Faced with the investor's wrath, Avery tries to prevent the use of heavy weaponry to protect their research findings. Elsewhere, the sheriff receives news of a severe accident and rushes to the hospital. She is relieved to learn that the treatment is going smoothly. Liz, the town's bartender, meets with Daniel, who is now heading to the big city to live as the Blue Devil and continue his fight against crime elsewhere. Meanwhile, Maria Sunderland, forced to consume a large amount of medication, begins to experience delusions and attacks by evil spirits. A witch comes to her aid, explaining that these nightmares are the result of the dark swamp forces she invoked while attempting to contact her daughter's spirit. The witch casts an irreversible spell, and on the wealthy investor's side, soldiers begin their hunt in the forest, tracking Swamp Thing's footsteps and stepping into his territory. They send out a team member as bait, hoping to lure the prey into their attack range. Suddenly, the bushes exhibit unusual activity, signaling an imminent ambush by the prey. The soldiers open fire immediately but hit no target. While reloading, they fall into one of Swamp Thing's traps, and cries of agony echo through the forest. Meanwhile, Abby Arcane arrives at the Sunderland estate only to find she's too late. After the witch's spell, Maria Sunderland is freed from her pain, her consciousness forever lost in a world of illusions, unable to communicate, leaving Abby no choice but to walk away. Dr. Woodrue, on the other hand, turns the organ samples into a grotesque meal and presents them to his wife as Swamp Thing's heart, claiming it contains miraculous cells that can cure all diseases. Despite his wife's panic, Woodrue consumes the sample himself, using his body as a test subject, ensuring his wife's safety before confirming the effects. However, he soon collapses in agony. The investor and soldiers wander the forest without finding their prey, discovering the bodies of their team members in the trees, which terrifies the investor into ordering a retreat. However, the path they came on vanishes, and the forest begins to manifest eerie phenomena, revealing that in the hunt initiated by the investor, Swamp Thing is the real hunter, and the soldiers who fell into the traps were merely weak prey. As the living vines surround everyone, people draw their machetes in defense, but the vines continue to attack relentlessly. Dr. Woodrue slowly stands up, undergoing some mutation and beginning to control plant powers, thrilling him as he prepares to share this experience with his wife. Abby, seeking more clues, plans to visit Caroline Woodrue but realizes something is wrong and immediately calls the hospital, only to be stopped by Dr. Woodrue, and the phone drops to the ground. Meanwhile, the sheriff waits, feeling guilty about everything, when Avery Sunderland unexpectedly shows up. The sheriff tensely draws her gun, but learns from Sunderland that he means no harm and genuinely wants to reconcile, even planning to divorce his current wife to take responsibility as a father and start a happy family life. However, the sheriff shows a fierce expression, unable to forgive Sunderland for turning her son into a murderer and almost killing his own flesh and blood, warning him to stay away from Matt Cable, or she will be forced to take lethal action. Dr. Woodrue continues to experiment with Swamp Thing's organs, infuriating Abby, who condemns his cold actions. Despite not being a true human, Swamp Thing possesses the will of a scientist and is merely a giant plant from the swamp. As Woodrue prepares to feed the organs to his wife, Abby rushes to stop him, but is quickly subdued by him. The police officer arrives following the phone's GPS signal and uses a stun gun, incapacitating Woodrue with high-voltage currents. Exhausted from the fight, the soldiers see the vines receding, possibly to launch a more ferocious attack. The captain orders a retreat, and as they reload, Swamp Thing emerges, unleashing a slaughter. Facing the invincible giant beast, the soldiers flee in terror. Meanwhile, with the help of the police, Abby escapes danger, and Caroline is taken to the hospital for treatment. The news reaches Liz, who checks on the situation, and Dr. Woodrue is arrested, awaiting trial in jail. Matt Cable receives the news and feels a weight lift off his shoulders, hoping his father survives and doesn't die by his hand, causing his mother distress and prompting apologies from her heart. She promises that once Matt fully recovers, they will start anew in a different city. She leaves the hospital relieved as fog begins to envelop the outside, bringing an ominous feeling. Preparing to head home, Lucilia discovers Avery hidden in the back seat, but before she can react, she's stabbed, and Avery seals her fate, sinking the car into the swamp to destroy the evidence as her body undergoes strange transformations, coughing up bizarre plants, seemingly infected by the earlier epidemic. The investor, terrified, scrambles through the forest but is quickly caught by Swamp Thing, who sternly warns him to spread the word of the swamp's events and forbids any further human intrusion, threatening entanglement by the vines. The investor flees, haunted by the encounter, as Swamp Thing roars in anger but gradually finds peace, contemplating leaving the swamp to avoid becoming a monster in people's eyes. Influenced by the scientist's illusion, however, he decides to stay, guarding the swamp against the spread of evil. Abby returns to the swamp's lab, realizing the scientist can't be revived but still cares for Swamp Thing, hoping to remain by each other's side and delve deeper into nature as dark forces grow, preparing for the ongoing battle. Later, when Matt returns to the station, he finds it in disarray, with no colleagues in sight, and the surroundings overrun by eerie plants, leading to the grim discovery of their bodies. Picking up a gun, he confronts Dr. Woodrue, who has undergone a terrifying mutation after consuming the organ samples, gaining the power of nature and a body similar to Swamp Thing's, leaving the deputy in shock before meeting a cold end at Woodrue's hands, concluding the first season. What evil plans will the mutated Dr. Woodrue hatch? If you like this video, don't forget to subscribe, because by subscribing you have supported me to make better videos. See you in the next video.